Okay, what's going on, everybody? We're here, we're live. I want to thank you all for joining me today. My apologies if I'm coming off a bit laggy. I'm pretty sure you all don't care, but I do. So I'm really apologizing to myself, right? But if I come off a bit laggy and there appears to be somewhat of a delay where I'm moving a little bit slowly on my end, forgive me for that. I don't know why things are moving a little bit slow on the laptop right now. But nonetheless, that's neither here nor there because we're here live. And I want to thank you all for joining me today. So if you can see and hear me clearly, please drop a 1 in the live chat and then we can get today's show started. Also, as I'm waiting for the ones to come into the live stream and in the live chat, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button. Hitting the like button is one of the most important things that you can do for this channel because that ensures that those who are subscribed to this channel will get their notifications, and it also assists in making sure that this video permeates throughout the YouTube algorithm, therefore pushing this video out to those who are interested in this type of content. Also, if you've been ghost watching my content for a while now, but you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, make sure you share this video out on your social media platforms as well so that everyone knows that I'm currently live. But it also has the same effect within the YouTube algorithm as well. So let's get into it. I see the ones are starting to come in. I even see a 1.5, and shout out to Lunches for unsubscribing. Lunches said TD showing up late, unsubscribe. Y'all stay unsubscribing and resubscribing over here, huh? I mean, I'm almost what I came in like what 6:03 my time. Don't you guys, like, if you, for those that if you have a job where you have to clock in or whatnot, right? Don't they do they still do that, like 5-minute grace periods where technically if you clock in after 5 minutes, then you're late, but you get a 5-minute grace period? I think we're going to put that in play here at TD Hip Hop Media. I got a 5-minute grace period, and I came on live at about 6:03, 6:04. I'm on time. You can't write me up for that. I'm on time. Okay. So, because you all can't write me up for being late because I was on time, let's get into today's show. And what I want to talk about today is a protest that occurred in a city, a neighborhood called Brighton Park, right? That is an area, or I should say city in Chicago. I'm trying to plug in my laptop and do it like smoothly. I can't do it smoothly. Just give me a second. I can't do it smoothly. Now the unsubscribes are really going to come in. Now y'all really about to unsubscribe, right? We're starting this stream off ashy. Anyways, a lot's going on in Chicago as always. But before we get into the meat of today's video, right? What I want to do is play a quick clip from you all of Joe Biden. And it was a clip that I actually played in a video, a pre-recorded video that I released earlier this morning, or I should say this afternoon. And I just want you to remember this clip as we carry on with today's live stream. So let me play this for you right now. And like I said, just keep this in the back of your mind as we move forward, okay?
Vice President Biden, do you support reparations?
Look, let me, since I haven't spoken on this, got a chance. Number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of immigration. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single continent. The people who come here have determination, resilience. They are ready to stand up and work like the devil. We have 24 out of every 100 children in our school today is Hispanic. The idea that we are going to walk away and not provide every opportunity for them is not only stupid and immoral, but it's bad for America. They are the future of America, and we should invest in them. Everybody will benefit from it, every single American, and you should get used to it. This is a nation of immigrants. That's who we are. That's why we're who we are. That's what makes us different, and we should invest in them.
Thank you, Mr. Biden. Senator Klobuchar, you had your hand up.
He told you to get used to it. Get used to it. Okay. He told you all to get used to it because we are a nation of immigrants. So, like I said, I want you to keep that in the back of your mind as we continue on, right? Biden was asked a very direct question about reparations for the descendants of American slavery, Black American descendants of American slavery. And he told you that he was going to give you reparations to the Hispanic community. Get used to it. So now let's fast forward now, because that was back in 2020. Let's come to the present day. And like I said, recently in a neighborhood called Brighton Park, there was a protest that occurred last week, right? Late last week. And in that protest, where they were protesting against a migrant shelter being placed in their neighborhood, it got violent. Things got violent. I believe the older woman in that neighborhood or in that ward, all right, her name is Julia Ramirez, if I remember correctly, but we're going to obviously get her name as I play the video. She was attacked. Her assistant was attacked. Her assistant actually even had to be taken to the hospital, right? It was reported that he was okay, but he was taken to the hospital. And I want to get into that. But here's what's interesting before we dive into that, right? I want to pull up some information about Brighton Park. So let me bring this up on the screen for you right now. And let me remove myself. Okay. So let's get into the demographics of Brighton Park. Who lives at Brighton Park, right? For those of you who don't know. Brighton Park, as you should be able to see right here, the demographics is 6.8% Mzungu, 1.2% Black, 80.9% Hispanic, and 10.2% Asian, or as I like to say, AAPI community, right? So this is largely, overwhelmingly a Hispanic community, with the second largest population being the AAPI community. But what you're going to find that's interesting about this video that I'm going to play for you is that when you look at this protest that's occurring in Brighton Park, it is roughly, my estimate, I'd say about 99% AAPI community that showed up to this protest and roughed up the older woman and her assistant. I can only imagine how the news cycles would have ran this story if this had happened on, with those that are protesting and trying to keep the South Shore High School, the Chicago Black community over there that are trying to maintain the South Shore High School, or for those in Black Chicago that reside in the West Side that's trying to maintain and hold on to a Munson Park. I can only imagine how the news cycle would run this story if Black Chicagoans attacked their alderman as well as their alderman's assistant as badly as to the point to where the alderman's assistant had to get taken to the hospital. Now, I'm not going to dive too deep into all that right now. I just wanted to put that out there and present that to you all. And I'll let everyone in the live chat or in the comment section afterwards, you all can discuss how you believe things would have went if that was Black Chicago who responded that way by attacking the alderman. But it wasn't Black Chicago. It was an overwhelmingly majority Hispanic community, 80%. 10% of that community, the second largest in that community, being the AAPI community. As you'll see in the video, 90% of those who showed up to the protest, 99% actually, were the AAPI community. And they violently attacked the alderman. It's interesting. It's interesting. So let's get into that video clip right now, and then we'll get back into the discussion. Okay.
Growing number of migrants turned violent today. 12th Ward Alderwoman Julia Ramirez says she and her aide were attacked during a migrant tent city protest in Brighton Park. A crowd was captured on video swarming the pair. NBC5's V Win with reaction from other lawmakers tonight.
It was a tense morning for 12th Ward Alderwoman Julia Ramirez as she came face-to-face with her constituents who were angry over the city's proposed plan for migrants in their neighborhood. Protesters can be seen pushing and shoving. The alderwoman and her staff were flanked by Chicago police officers. They tried leaving when she says they were assaulted. Demonstrators gathered all day at 38th in California. The city is proposing to turn this vacant lot into a base camp for migrants.
We are the person live in the community. Why? We don't know about that.
Brighton Park is not big enough for all these people.
The alderwoman addressed what happened hours later as disappointing. She said she was trying to talk to concerned residents and to clear misinformation about her involvement with the city's proposed plan when things took a turn. She released a statement saying in part, I hear my residents and want them to know I will always advocate for their safety and ensure our communities have the resources they deserve. I also respect everyone's right to peacefully protest. However, violence and hate is not the answer. Mayor Brandon Johnson, the Chicago Aldermanic Black Caucus, and several other groups condemn the act of violence. A delegation of aldermen visiting the southern border also returning home early to show their support. Police say the alderwoman declined medical attention. Her staffer was taken to the hospital in good condition. Meanwhile, demonstrators here say they will take the city to court if they have to. Protesters plan to be back out here tomorrow morning at 9, then again on Saturday, all leading up to the community meeting at Kelly High School next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Reporting in Brighton Park, V1 NBC5 News.
Very interesting. Now, here's the thing, right? As I kind of analyze, what's happening over there in Brighton Park. First off, as far as my research so far, no one went to jail and there was no arrest. I can't really say I'm so surprised about that because I'm not really. But no one went to jail and there were absolutely no arrests, even though the assault on that older woman happened in broad daylight in 4K for everyone to see. And I also want to read a little bit of this article here, just so you can see kind of how bad things actually were over there, right? And what happened with the older woman. So give me just a second while I pull this article up for you all right now. And while I'm pulling the article up, there are 662 of you all in the live stream right now. Please hit the like button if you have not already. That is one of the most, if not the most important thing that you can do for this channel, is hit the like button if you haven't already. And if you find the content that I've produced on this channel fruitful and informative and worth, being seen by others, make sure you share this video out on your social media platforms as well. So now let's get into this article right here. And this article is titled, let me pull it up on a screen for you all. It's titled, "After Violent Brighton Park Migrant Camp Protest, Older Woman Says Mayor Left Her in the Dark." I'm going to read that one more time. After violent Brighton Park migrant camp protest, older woman says Mayor Brandon Johnson left her in the dark. Alderwoman Julia Ramirez and others city officials are hosting a meeting about the city's plans for the winterized tent camp on Tuesday. And that meeting was today. That actually occurred today, right? But like I said, I just want to go into it really quick just so you can see how bad this actually was. Nearly 100 protesters gathered to voice opposition to the city's plans, saying officials hadn't notified them properly about the potential camp or taken their input into consideration. Ramirez was swarmed by protesters when she arrived. People threw signs in her face, screamed, grabbed her, and shoved themselves against her as police officers worked to break up the crowd, right? And once again, as I stated earlier, no one went to jail and no one was arrested, which is not surprising. But let's get back into the article and read a little bit more, because ultimately this all comes down to being Brandon Johnson's fault, right? And this is all Brandon Johnson's fault. And this woman was indeed attacked because of Brandon Johnson and his unwillingness, right? Brandon Johnson's unwillingness to actually engage in meaningful and fruitful dialogue with the citizens of Chicago. He won't do it. If you notice, he doesn't show up to any public hearings. He doesn't show up to any town hall hearings or town hall meetings. He won't even speak to the people of Munson Park, which is his neighborhood. That's his neighborhood. And he won't even talk to them. He barely speaks to his aldermen. And because of his unwillingness to communicate with not just the people, but just simply the aldermen who are their representatives, because of his unwillingness to communicate and speak to them, because he only likes to operate in the dark, his unwillingness to actually engage in meaningful dialogue is why that alderwoman was attacked. That's why she was attacked. Democrats speak so much, particularly when it comes to Black Americans. They love to talk about democracy. Democracy's on the ballot. You know, if you don't keep voting blue, no matter who, you know, the Republicans are going to get back in power. They're going to put us all back in chains.
They're going to put you all back in chains. They're going to put you all back in chains.
They're going to put us all back in chains, and they're going to roll back the tides of history and engage in voter suppression, right? There's no greater form of voter suppression than just simply outright ignoring your constituents. Because at that point, the voter suppression is so extreme that it doesn't matter if you voted for them or not. You actually voted for Brandon Johnson, as well as these aldermen. But let's keep it on Brandon Johnson. You voted for Brandon Johnson. And once he got into office, he simply ignored you. Primarily Black Chicago, but now we're seeing it spill out to the rest of the city. They talk so much about voter suppression. But who needs voter suppression as far as Democrats are concerned? Who needs voter suppression when I'll just outright ignore you anyways? Yeah, vote for me. I'm not going to do what you say. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to participate in meaningful dialogue. I'm just going to ignore you. You tell me what's worse. Voting for your politician to get in and they just outright ignore you, or this boogeyman voter suppression thing that they keep talking about with the Republicans. What's worse? I think voting in a constituent who continues to ignore you is far worse. All right. That's just my opinion, though. That's my opinion, though. And there's plenty of facts that back all this up. Let's get into this article right now with Brandon Johnson about the older woman who was attacked because of Brandon Johnson's unwillingness to engage in meaningful dialogue. And let's hear what she actually had to say, right? And there are 819 of you in here right now. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. So let's get into this. And this is what the older woman had to say. In an open letter to 12th Ward residents, Ramirez said the decision to build a tent camp in the ward was made without her. Once again, Brandon Johnson refuses to engage in meaningful dialogue, not just with the citizens of Chicago, but with the aldermen who are put in place to represent those citizens. And here's a direct quote from Ms. Ramirez. When Mayor Johnson's office announced plans for winterized base camps in September and asked alder people to submit locations in our wards that could support these temporary shelters, my office did not submit any locations, the older woman wrote. The mayor's administration has been in direct contact with the property owner of the site at 30th in California without looping in my office. And once again, Brandon Johnson's unwillingness to get engaged in meaningful dialogue with his constituents is primarily the main reason behind all of the agitation happening in Chicago. Outside of the fact of when you're talking about Black Chicago, he's stripping critical resources from their community, right? That they need and that they've been fighting for. Outside of that, the most frustrating thing is his unwillingness to speak with them. He's sitting on his high horse, like the Grand Wizard of Chicago, doing whatever he wants, however he wants to do it, regardless of what you think and how you feel. Now, very quickly, before we continue on to the next portion of this dialogue, what I'd like to do is take a moment to thank those who have supported the channel today, because I do appreciate you all dearly, and it's definitely much appreciated. Thank you very much, Joseph Brown, for becoming a channel member. Thank you very much, Cynthia McDonald. $5 for $5 for TD for the 5-minute grace period. I appreciate that. I need that grace period. I wasn't late today. I was within my 5 minutes. I was not late today. Shout out to Diane Robinson for becoming a channel member. Thank you very much. Shout out to my big homie, Blacklight Revelations 2. You all know him as Rob, for being a member for 24 months now. He says support the channel and become a member. Thank you very much. And also Cynthia McDonald doubling down. I appreciate you so much, Cynthia, for doubling down. She said, He told me to my face, he pushed, oh, so you spoke with Brandon Johnson. Okay, let's see what Cynthia McDonald had to say. He told me to my face, he pushed policies good for Black people when he was Cook County Commissioner. I'm so disgusted. Really? I got to look into that. But I already know the answer to that question is if I look into that, it's going to be complete BS, because what Democrats feel that they're doing when they say they're pushing policy that's good for Black people, when they say I did do something for Black people, what they do is that they latch onto the disparities, the many disparities that exist between Black and white Americans, right? Now, these disparities could quickly be dispersed if we would actually focus on closing the racial wealth gap, but the Democrats will not do that, because in closing the racial wealth gap, what happens is all these other disparities will begin to shrink rapidly as well. And they love these disparities and having these disparities in place, because as opposed to handling the main issue of closing the wealth gap, what they can do is continuously participate in patchwork, where they'll say something of the nature of, elderly Black people are disproportionately unable to buy their prescription medicine versus their white counterparts. So they'll take some legislation and they'll say, well, we passed the Affordable Medication Act, so now the elderly Black folks can afford their medicine, right? But then they don't factor in things like inflation and cost of living and things of that nature. So the price might have come down a little bit, but because of all this spending that's going on in the country, giving all this money to different countries across the world because of all these wars popping off, inflation is rising, everything is too expensive, and you can't afford much these days. And that act in and of itself ends up not doing much. But on paper, technically, they'll be able to say, here, this is what we did for Black people on paper. That's what I often refer to as phantom statistics. These are victories with no victories, as Malcolm X once said. It's a victory that you can talk about, but it's a victory that you can't show me. It's victories that only exist on paper, but in the real world outside of my window, you can't find the victory. Let me calm down. Cutthroat Nash. I appreciate you, Cutthroat Nash, for always coming through, brother. Cutthroat Nash says this isn't a democracy; it's authoritarian. It's authoritarian. And Cutthroat Nash, you are 100% correct about that. You are 100% correct about that. And that is what the Democrats continue to show Black Americans. And the evidence of this is clearly seen within the city of Chicago, right? And here's the thing. They are very adamant about not doing anything for you, regardless of the fact that you voted them in. But they are also always very crystal clear about what they will do for everybody else. And they're going to do it for them whether you like it or not. This is why you saw the anger and fury in Joe Biden's voice when he was asked a very direct question about whether or not he supported reparations for the Black American descendants of slavery. And he responded by telling you what he was going to do for the Hispanic community. He told you that he was going to give your reparations to these so-called migrants. He told you this ahead of time. And at the end of it, he said, this is a nation of immigrants. Get used to it. He told you, get used to it. And that was why I played that video earlier. And I'm going to play it again one more time because it's relevant.
Support reparations?
Look, let me, since I haven't spoken on this, got a chance. Number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of immigration. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single continent. The people who come here have determination, resilience. They are ready to stand up and work like the devil. We have 24 out of every 100 children in our school today is Hispanic. The idea that we are going to walk away and not provide every opportunity for them is not only stupid and immoral, but it's bad for America. They are the future of America, and we should invest in them. Everybody will benefit from it, every single American, and you should get used to it. This is a nation of immigrants. That's single American, and you should get used to it. This is a nation of immigrants. That's who we are. That's why we're who we are. That's what makes us different, and we should invest in them.
Thank
you. And you should get used to it. This is a nation of immigrants. That's who we are. That's why we're who we are. That's what makes us different, and we should invest in them.
Thank you, Mr. Biden. Senator Klobuchar, you had your hand up.
If you think that we're not going to provide every opportunity for them to succeed, then you're the one that's crazy. This is a nation of immigrants, and you should get used to it. Get used to it. And they told you they were going to do this. they never hit any of this. And that's what's just so mind-blowing, unfortunate, disappointing, and upsetting when I see our folks just give their votes away to these people like this. Because they're very clear in what they're going to do for you and what they're not going to do for you. They're very clear in the fact that they aren't going to do anything for you and that they're going to do everything to provide opportunity for everybody else. Let's go back to Chicago now, right? Because I often reference this article here, right? Oh, well, let me pull the article up. And as I'm pulling up the article, there are over 1,000 of you in the live stream right now. So please hit that like button if you have not already. It says 1,002. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. But once again, coming back to the point that I was going to make, they're very clear about what they aren't going to do for you, which is nothing. But they are always very crystal clear about what they're going to do for everybody else. Coming back to Chicago now, and I always pull up this article, but I promise I'm going to pull up another article alongside of this, right? In Chicago, Brandon Johnson was very clear, and I pull this up all the time, on what he was going to do once he became mayor. He was very clear on this. Chicago mayoral candidate Brandon Johnson unveils plan to support migrants. There is no article that exists that says Chicago mayoral candidate Brandon Johnson unveils plan to support Black Chicago. Come to his webpage over here when he was running for office. Brandon Johnson, or I should say brandonforchicago.com/issues/immigration, right? The plan for sanctuary and immigrant justice. There is no plan for Black American justice in Chicago, but there is a plan for sanctuary and immigrant justice in Chicago by way of Brandon Johnson. He was very clear, crystal clear. A true sanctuary city. I just want to read this paragraph here for you all very quickly, right? And the paragraph reads as such: Chicago must lead and live by its promise to be a sanctuary city and welcoming immigrants, migrants, and refugees, and treat them with dignity and respect. Sanctuary means that everyone is welcome here, and as a city, we commit to take care of each other and provide all our neighbors with the resources they need to thrive. Didn't Joe Biden literally say the same thing in that clip that I played for you? Didn't he say that? I'm going to read that one more time. He said, sanctuary means that everyone is welcome here. And as a city, we commit to take care of each other and provide all our neighbors with the resources they need to thrive. Joe Biden told you we are going to provide them with every opportunity that they need to be successful. This is a nation of immigrants. You should get used to it. That's what he told you. And Brandon Johnson literally told you the same thing right here in word form. This sanctuary promise must extend to everyone who needs it in our city, including residents who are indigenous, old, and new. All right? So now what I want to do is I want to hop over to the Chicago Sun-Times article in closing. Because like I said, Joe Biden, Brandon Johnson, they are holding true to what they said they were going to do by making sure they provide every opportunity possible so that they can survive and thrive in this country. They're holding true to everything that they told you that they were going to do. But back in 2020, when me and a host of others were saying, hey, man, red flag, foul on the play, you know, they're going to do something for everybody except for you. We were told, people like myself were told that we were Hotep hooligans and Russian bots. And actually, I am a Russian bot powered by artificial intelligence and chat GPT. That's why you saw me a little glitchy and everything was lagging earlier, because, you know, they need to update my software. I'm not actually a real person. This is AI, right? But they tell you all of this, and they're holding true to everything that they said they were going to do. Let me read this one last article for you in closing, right? So give me just a moment while I pull it up. And as I'm pulling it up, there are 981 of you in the live stream right now. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. And I see a few more super chats that came through. I will be addressing those super chats after this last article. And I want to thank you all who have contributed to today's show. And if you feel that today's show was a fruitful one and is a fruitful one, and that this is information that is worth putting out there, you can be sure to show me your thanks through the super chat via Cash App, $TDHipHop, or Venmo at tdhiphop as well. So here's the Chicago Sun-Times article that I want to bring up in closing, right? And this is going to make me lag again. So let me go ahead and just get the camera off me. The Chicago Sun-Times article is killing me. There it goes. Okay. So let's dive into this, because like I said, they're standing true to everything that they said they were going to do. Some Chicago migrants could end up in St. Louis amid efforts to boost jobs and stem population loss. You're not going to believe what you're getting ready to read here. This is the deal that Brandon Johnson, and we cannot forget J.B. Pritzker, governor of Illinois, are planning for the so-called migrants who are just now arriving in Chicago. Brace yourself now. Here we go. As Chicago officials scramble to shelter and find solutions for thousands of migrants who need housing and jobs, groups in St. Louis are looking to move some of those asylum seekers there, modeling the program of similar efforts in recent years involving Afghan refugees. Look at how they have all these plans to house and provide jobs for everybody else except for the Black Americans that vote Democrat to the tick of 85 to 90% religiously just to get nothing in return for your votes. But everybody else gets in return what you thought you would get for your vote. But I digress. The nonprofit International Institute of St. Louis, working with unions and philanthropic leaders to resettle possibly thousands of Latin American migrants in their city to bolster St. Louis's workforce and stem its population decline. Get used to it. That's what Biden told you. Now, here's where you need to brace yourself. Check this out, right? Ramirez said the program would be funded primarily by private donors and would provide housing for as long as 3 months, cell phones, apprenticeship programs, and job placement through unions, and assistance for immigration lawyers. Wow. I don't know what happened with this just now. Let me refresh the page. But did you hear what I just said? They're providing jobs. They're providing 3 months worth of rent-free housing, cell phones, an apprenticeship program, job placement through unions, and immigration lawyers. Let me get the camera back on me, because I'm not sure what's happening with this article. Today's stream was a rough one, boy, wasn't it? But that's what's happening in Chicago right now. And all this is occurring by way of the Democratic Party, Joe Biden, and specifically as it pertains to Chicago, Brandon Johnson. What's most interesting about what I just read off to you is that everything that they're getting ready to provide to these so-called migrants in St. Louis, coming by way of Chicago and Brandon Johnson, is all of the things that this brother out of Chicago, Tyrone Mohammed, always talks about. Many of you are familiar with Tyrone Mohammed, especially if you live in Chicago. Some of you may not be familiar with Tyrone Mohammed, but one of the big things that Tyrone Mohammed is big on, and that he's a huge kind of activist on, if I'm not mistaken, Tyrone Mohammed did a couple years in jail. You know, he is a felon. And his big thing is that, you know, for brothers like himself who come out of jail, they want to reform, they want to turn their lives around, they want to do the right thing, they want to do good by themselves, by their people, and by their families. They don't have opportunity to do anything to do right by themselves in Chicago because they can't get work and they can't get housing. And that's a big thing of Tyrone Mohammed that I've heard, is how they cannot get work and they cannot get housing. Brothers like himself. Now, he's been able to figure out a way for himself, but he fights for those who are not being heard on that front, right? Now, we can get into homeless, and we can also get into just regular everyday Black folks that are struggling out there, but just focusing on what he talks about concerning, you know, felons who want to turn their life around. They want to do right, but they can't. There's no avenue for them to do right. Brandon Johnson is collaborating with St. Louis in order to create a pathway to provide these so-called migrants with 3 months of free housing as they're able to just work and stack up their money to do the things that they need to do for themselves to build up themselves and their family moving forward. Don't you think these brothers like Tyrone Mohammed, who are trying their best to turn their life around but can't because of their record, don't they deserve that same chance but don't get it? Don't they deserve, you know, a little, hey man, brother, let me help you out. They give you some, you know, 3 months of free housing, right? Don't worry about it. Cell phone, we got you covered. We'll set you up in an apprenticeship program. We got you, brother. Don't worry about it. Matter of fact, we're going to help get you a job through this union. And remember, they were providing the so-called migrants with lawyers as well, with free lawyers, with free immigration lawyers. Brother, we're going to set you up with a good defense attorney. We're going to try to get your record expunged. We're going to help you out with all of this stuff. Don't you think they deserve that kind of a second chance at life? But they can't get it. They can't get it. But these so-called migrants get it. And this is coming by way of the Democratic Party. Vote blue no matter who. Brandon Johnson, Joe Biden, they told you they were going to do all of this, and they're standing true to their word. And outside of the fact that they told you they were going to do all of this, they're not even listening or entertaining what you have to say at all, because once again, they don't actually believe in democracy. They say that in word, but they don't mean it in action. And we see that reflected within the city of Chicago, as Brandon Johnson refuses to communicate when not just the constituents, the citizen population, but also refuses to communicate with his aldermen, which have resulted to violence breaking out in the streets, to where, what's her name again? Julia Ramirez was attacked, because that's how agitated the city is becoming with Brandon Johnson, who, once again, he doesn't believe in democracy. That's why he doesn't want to talk to any of you all. And with all that being said, that does it for today's stream. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. Hopefully you found this stream very fruitful and informative. And I want to thank you all for joining me. On your way out, please hit the like button. There are 1,100 of you all in the live stream right now. Please hit the like button on your way out. And in closing, I want to thank those who have contributed to today's stream. Those who financially contributed to today's stream, it is deeply appreciated and does not go unnoticed. I'm not just saying that just to be saying it. I do mean it for all of you who financially contribute to the show. Michael Merriweather said, you vote for him, Cynthia, because y'all are married to the Democratic Party. Time to wake up. It is time for us to wake up, because time is pretty much almost up, if not arguably up already. Jerry Early said, thank you, TD. Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate you, brother. Big Dog O-Town. Big Dog O-Town said, I live in Ogden, Utah. I'm with my black folks in Chicago, but all black registered voters should be independent voters only. B1. I agree with you. Got to break that chain to just being shackled to the Democratic Party, right? Start thinking for yourself. Thank you very much, Derek M, for the super chat. And thank you very much in closing, Freedom Affairs radio channel. And I want to thank you all once again for joining me on today's stream and putting up with the technical difficulties in the beginning. So once again, please hit that like button on your way out. Thank you all for your time. And until the next video, peace. Have a great evening.